Hello, and thanks for tuning in. We have another special treat for you today. But first, do you know who Leonard Nimoy is? Well, if not, live long and prosper and go away. Just kidding, of course. But if you do, then you will definitely enjoy this seldom heard interview with the legendary Art Bell and Mr. Spock himself. They chat about a range of multiple topics, from the Star Trek TV show to alien life. If you enjoy this type of content, please like and subscribe. And now I will delay you no further. Let's roll the tape.
In a moment, Leonard Nimoy, here for only a very short time. This is Leonard Nimoy. Leonard, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. We have such a short time that I feel obligated to literally pummel you with questions.
Okay, go.
All right. The character Mr. Spock came along at a time in our country of peace, love, Woodstock, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Let it all hang out, that kind of time.
Right.
And yet, Spock was the picture, the very essence of self-control, self-denial, self-governance. How could that character have become such a hero in such an uncontrolled atmosphere?
Well, it's a great question. I think for one thing, the time was one where so many people were becoming cynical about government and authority figures. It was clear that bureaucracy was not responding to the individual, and the war in Vietnam was ongoing, in spite of the fact that more and more people every day believed that it was wrong. We all believed in supporting our country, but we believed that we shouldn't be in that war. And here came a character who had a dignity and integrity and intelligence. I think the sense was that this was a person that you could believe and count on. That wouldn't be involved with hypocrisy, duplicity.
There was a hunger then.
Yeah, oh yeah, I think so. I think he served a great hunger, absolutely. And I think too that we were ready for the idea of a friendly alien.
Well, that's right. How do you feel, by the way, about the role itself? You'll be Mr. Spock, of course, forever. Do you ever get resentful of that?
No, I'm very comfortable with it. That's why the last book that I wrote, I Am Spock, is titled the way it is. I've really come full circle with it. I'm totally comfortable.
Do you think that Gene Roddenberry would approve of the repeat direction and usage of original characters that have been now exhaustively repeated in, so many other knockoffs?
Well, I don't think Gene had any problem with perpetuating Star Trek. I think he would always enjoy the idea of the success of the franchise, but I do think that he would be at least interested in seeing that the thematic ideas were strong. That's what Star Trek really is about when it's at its best. Is the thematic ideas. It should be great entertainment, great adventure, but it should be about something.
Yes, and Star Trek always was. Is it moving away from that slowly, the knockoffs?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I don't watch enough of it to pass judgment. I feel very good about what we did. I feel very good about the TV shows and the movies that I was involved with. I've seen Generations and I've seen Contact, and I'm not really sure that they are stories that I would have set out to do as major motion pictures.
So your reaction to Contact was not...
I think it was very well done, very well executed. I'm just not...
Where was the story?
I wasn't blown away with the story, exactly.
Let's go back to Star Trek for a second. Do you remember the gentleman, and I cannot, who was originally cast as a captain of the Enterprise, Christopher Pike?
Yeah, it was Jeffrey Hunter.
And what happened to him?
Well, Jeffrey Hunter was an important movie star. He was a very great gentleman and a fine actor. He did the first pilot as Captain Pike, and then about a year later, when NBC and Desi Lee decided they wanted to make a second pilot, he simply wasn't available. I'm not sure whether he had another job or whether the negotiations with him got too tough or whatever.
That was later brought back as a menagerie, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I guess you've really already answered this, but with respect to your answer on Contact, but otherwise, other television programs, movies, and so forth, has anything come close to the genre of Star Trek?
Well, what an interesting question. I saw a few episodes of Outer Limits that I thought were very interesting. I think X-Files has a great kind of internal life going on. It has a certain kind of style, and it has an attitude. And I think that's very important. I think Babylon 5 has an attitude that works at times. That's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned. So I mean, in my range of experience.
A very trivial question, but important to me nevertheless. In the early episodes, many years actually, of Star Trek, the women, the ensigns, all had these wonderful uniforms that in later years changed to pants. Who did that?
I don't know, but you're touching on a very interesting point. The science fiction for a long time was a sub-genre. It was considered a distant cousin of important work. And in fact, when I started acting in science fiction 45 years ago, if you can believe it, in a Saturday afternoon serial called Zombies of the Stratosphere, science fiction was a genre in which you saw monsters, you saw people in strange outfits who came from other worlds, and you saw ladies who was scantily dressed.
Yes.
And there was always some sexy aspect to it. And that was what you saw in the early days of Star Trek. There were the women were, I think Bill Tice did a brilliant job of dressing or nearly dressing some of the ladies. And then later on, I guess political correctness and feminism came on the scene. And there was some question about whether or not these women shouldn't be wearing more clothes in their professional situations, and that's what happened.
I'm not sure, but I think it's also perhaps as the airline stewardesses began to get older, too.
Yeah, well, that could be. Yeah.
Where did the idea of the all-famous Vulcan mind meld come from?
We were doing an episode called, I believe, Dagger of the Mind. And there was an actor playing a character who was mentally deranged. And he had information that we had to have. And the scene as it was written was a kind of a tedious interrogation scene where I asked him a lot of questions and got information from him piecemeal, a word here and a word there, and it wasn't as dramatic as it might be. And Gene Roddenberry came up with this idea that Vulcans could do this mating of the minds and extract the information that way. It was kind of a Vulcan version of hypnosis. And it made for a much more dramatic way of getting the information and became a very useful tool for the Spock character.
I remember clearly, and I saw every single episode and every single movie, and I remember when you died. I remember when your casket, I thought, flashed and burned in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
What was it like to be killed off?
I had a tough time with it. I took the job because, frankly, I believed that might be the last Star Trek movie. And I thought, why not go out in a flash and a blaze of glory, saving the Enterprise and the crew, and dying in the process. I really thought this might be the last film. By the time we got around to shooting the final scene, the goodbye scene, where I'm saying goodbye to Captain Kirk, I had the sense that the movie was going to work. And I thought, if this movie is as good as I think it is, there are going to be more. And I began to have second thoughts about what I had done. But the die was cast, and I was a little late. It was a little too late to do anything about it, except that on the day we were shooting that scene, Harv Bennett came down on the set and said, do you think that you could do something in this scene that would give us a thread to pick up if there is another movie? And that's when I came up with this idea of doing a mind meld with Dee Kelly and simply saying the word remember.
Yes.
It was ambiguous enough that a writer could pick up that idea and
remember there might be another.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget, if there's another movie, don't forget me.
Right. In Search of, a lot of people wrote and asked me to ask you about In Search of, whether you ever might pick that up again.
Well, I tell you, In Search of was a pleasant surprise to me. Again, I thought maybe 2 or 3 seasons would be the stretch of the show. We did 7 years, and we did 144 episodes, and I think it became sort of the model and the granddaddy of a lot of the reality-based searching shows that are on the air now. In fact, for the last couple of years, I've been narrating a show called Ancient Mysteries, which has its own similarities to In Search of. I haven't heard any word about In Search of being resurrected, but it's not a bad idea.
All right. It was Alan Keyes, a presidential candidate in the last election, who said, Star Trek in many ways more personifies the spirit of what NASA used to be than does the current NASA. Would you agree with that?
That's interesting. I wasn't aware of that. I think it's true. And I think just this last week that we've been seeing a revival of interest in NASA. I think they've had an enormous success with the rover on Mars, and I think that they have gotten out of their kind of bureaucratic bind and gotten into an adventurous spirit that's captured the imagination again. And if that's true, and if they can keep that kind of sense of adventure going, I think that they might build on it successfully. There's still a tremendous interest, I think, in what's out there, and I think NASA is the organization that's best set up to do the exploring.
Building greater interest than ever in what's out there. More UFO reports, lights over Phoenix recently, the celebration of Roswell, the rest of it. What about moving into the realm of reality? How much chance do you think there really is that we will be contacted? There is so much media.
Yeah.
It's almost as though we are being prepared.
Yeah. You know, when we were making the Star Trek series, the first season, middle of the first season, some people came to me and they said, you may not know it, but you have been chosen as a kind of a vessel to carry information to this civilization to help prepare this society for the coming of another civilization, for alien arrival. And your character is a character designed to educate this public that there's nothing to fear, that it's possible to interact with other species.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay. It's okay with me if that's the case. And yes, it's ongoing. It doesn't stop. I guess there's something in me that responds to it as well. That's why I hooked up with John Delancey and several other Star Trek actors and actresses, and we call ourselves Alien Voices. This group that's doing these audio tapes, the Journey to the Center of the Earth and the Time Machine and Lost World, and I guess we're kind of touched by that idea. We're tickled by that idea. Our imaginations are awakened, aroused by that idea. I'm curious. I'm very curious. The Carl Sagan movie that just opened, the movie based on Carl Sagan's book Contact just opened.
Right.
It's a flawed movie, but I think one of the most important moments in the movie is when Jodie Foster tells us the numbers. There are something like 4 billion stars in our galaxy alone. And there are billions of other galaxies. Each of those stars are potential suns just like ours. And that means that if one out of every million of those stars has planets around it, and if one out of every million of those has some kind of life on it, then the numbers tell us that the chances are very, very great that there is life out there someplace. But
the distances are immense, and the technology involved to get here would dictate they would be far, far ahead of us.
Well, not necessarily. They might be far ahead of us. They might be parallel to us. We don't know that for sure. But you're right. The chances are they're far ahead of us, yeah.
So a good question is whether you think that beings, not just humans, evolve toward or away from violence. An important question if we're going to meet up with somebody.
Yeah, well, that's always the question. How did they, the first thing that we would like to know is how did you folks get through the technological phase of your civilization and survive? How did you survive all the discoveries atomic weaponry and atomic power and that kind of thing without killing each other.
Yes.
And the assumption is that we'll be able to ask those questions and they'll educate us and help us get through it. It won't necessarily work that way. They may not. It may take an enormous amount of time just for us to learn how to communicate with them, let alone to get information from them. The assumption always is that they have traveled the same path that we are traveling, that they may be 100 or 1,000 years ahead of us, but that they have gone through exactly the same experience, and chances are that's not necessarily true.
Well, recalling the prime directive, if you look at what we have done here on Earth, reality, when we have met people who have been isolated from the world until one sudden day when they're found in the middle of a jungle somewhere, we destroy them.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So, I don't know. Listen, on a lighter note, you did some music stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, I have dabbled with music in my time. Where are you going with this?
Well, I just wanted to ask whether there's more. There's more coming. Not too many people know that you dabbled with music, do they?
Well, music has always been a love of mine, and when we were doing the Star Trek series, I had the opportunity to do some recording, which I did. I think I must have done about 6 albums. I also did a lot of musical theater. I toured the country in various musical shows in the 70s. I did Fiddler on the Roof, My Fair Lady, King and I, Camelot. Had a great time. I loved doing it.
And then a question I asked you just before the program, the one I did ask you is, how do you get a life? I mean, you're so busy, so many demands on your time, and I'm one of them right now. How do you make time for a life?
Well, first, let me say this. When I came to California, I was 18 years old. I left Boston, came to California to be an actor. For the first 15 years that I spent working at building a career, I was always wanting more opportunity. I was always struggling to get more work. When it all came together for me and Star Trek started, and I haven't been out of work since, and then particularly when I had a couple of hits directing movies and all of that came together, suddenly you're right. What happens to you, as you know, is that there's a tremendous amount of pressure builds up to do this, do that, and people would be happy to keep you busy 24 hours a day.
That's right.
I don't resent it because of the time that I spent wanting more and needing more and knowing what it's like being out of work.
So you just make rules.
Yeah, exactly. I try to keep a level head about it, and I try to help people understand that a man does not live by work alone.
That's it. Leonard, that's it. In more ways than one, that's a half an hour.
Really?
Yeah, that's a half an hour.
Oh, too fast.
Too fast is right. So can we do this again sometime?
Yeah, I'd love to.
All right. Leonard Nimoy, thanks a million. I wish I had hours. Take care.
Thank you.
And there you have it. What an absolute gem of a conversation. 2 legends and 1 unforgettable moment in time. Now, I've got to ask, what's your favorite Star Trek episode, movie, or quote? Drop it in the comments below. I'd love to hear it. As for me, here's the Star Trek quote that's always stuck with me.
After a time, you may find that having is not so pleasing a thing after all as wanting. It is not logical, but it is often true.